Golf Central. Brought to you by Titleist.
These are some of the headlines this week in the world of golf. All starts with the final major of 2016, the Evian Championship on the LPGA, where Lydia Ko is the defending champ. It's the second leg of the Web.com Tour's Final Four. Last week's winner, Bryson DeChambeau, in the field again and trying to make it 2 in a row this week in Boise. And on the PGA Tour champions, the Nature Valley First Tee Open, 81 juniors from the First Tee invited to play with the pros at Poppy Hills and Pebble Beach. But we start tonight with a big deal involving world number 1 Jason Day. Welcome into Golf Central. I'm George Savarickas. According to multiple reports, Jason Day will now be joining Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy donning the swoosh as part of a new deal. News coming down today that Day, according to multiple reports, has agreed to an apparel and shoe deal with Nike. The reports say Day will make upward of $10 million a year to wear Nike's footwear and apparel, including its hat. Day's contract with TaylorMade Adidas ends at the end of the year, but in May he re-upped to use TaylorMade equipment going forward. For more on this, I'm now joined by CNBC's Dominic Chu. Dominic, what impact will Jason Day's apparel deal with Nike have going forward?
You know, it's going to be the first and perhaps what could be many deals down the line. Now, it's important to note that Nike has already issued a statement saying that they don't comment on rumor or speculation. They are still committed to being the undisputed leader in footwear and apparel. So that's the official line. But of course, this is addressing those earlier ESPN reports that the world's number 1 golfer is going to sign an apparel and shoe deal with Nike. And that's a big deal because it's going to be a situation where, for the first time for many of these athletes, not just Jason Day, you're going to have a guy who's playing equipment from one company and wearing the stuff from another company that may have been associated with equipment in the past. It all seems confusing, but what you're going to see is a lot more logo combinations, basically, in players' bags and on themselves.
And Tiger Woods, another guy who has a deal with Nike in place. Now that he will be freed up going forward from an equipment standpoint, what will the market be like for his services?
You know, it all depends. I mean, first of all, there's no doubt right now that Tiger Woods is still the preeminent brand when it comes to an actual person in the world of golf. He's been at the top of those rankings for a long time, and according to Forbes, he's still at the top in the overall athletic world in terms of brand value. So Tiger Woods is still going to command a huge premium. The issue becomes whether or not Tiger Woods is seen being competitive going forward. We're about a month away from him rejoining that competitive circuit and playing professional golf again. If he does start winning, that elevates that brand value. Now, the club side of things is interesting because, as we know, Nike is getting out of the business. There's at least perceived to be a bit of a land grab right now for athletes to be able to play a certain set of clubs, but then wear a certain set of clothing out there. And Tiger Woods, if he does continue to win, could be a huge get for the equipment side of things. He could drive sales in a meaningful way for some companies. But now it's about whether or not those companies are going to want to shell out that kind of money. I've heard a lot of names thrown out there for people in a wild card setting. Maybe Mizuno Golf is one of them. I've heard a lot of buzz about PXG, Parsons Extreme Golf. So a lot of these companies could be poised to make some gains if they can get a winning athlete with the brand cachet Tiger has in their stable.
All right, thank you, Dominic. We haven't seen Tiger Woods on the PGA Tour since the Wyndham last year. The last we saw of Jason Day, he was withdrawing from the BMW Championship at Crooked Stick. Day pulled out after 8 holes on Sunday due to a back injury. The Aussie hopes to play the Tour Championship, and even with the WD, is still 4th in the FedEx Cup standings, meaning a win at Eastlake would win the FedEx Cup. And it might take that to try and win his first ever PGA Tour Player of the Year. Though it's been a heck of a 2016 for Jason with 3 wins and 10 top 10s. Thanks to the W at the BMW, Dustin Johnson now has 3 wins as well, including the U.S. Open and 14 top 10s. With Golf Channel analyst Billy Kratzer, winner on the PGA Tour. Let's get down to it. Who's your Player of the Year, Dustin Johnson or Jason Day?
Well, right now it has to be Dustin Johnson, simply because he does have a major championship. There seems to be a heavier weight scenario with a major championships. Now, given the fact that Day has won the Players, you know, I think it's right there also. They both won a WGC, and the win last week, I think, gave Dustin Johnson the edge when you start comparing for Player of the Year. And I just have to go ahead and right now give it to Dustin Johnson. Now, if Jason Day happens to get healthy and win the FedEx Cup, I think that's going to maybe change some of the minds of the players, but that major championship, it carries a huge amount of weight.
I remember having this debate a year ago when going into the Tour Championship, if Jason Day won, if he would leapfrog Jordan Spieth and win Player of the Year. Any chance, if he gets to 4 wins and that FedEx Cup trophy, which is generating a lot more cachet now that we're 10-plus years into it, that he could leapfrog DJ?
I don't think so, because statistically, you start looking at it. DJ, here's a player that has 14 top 10s, and you just look at his whole body of work. The only misstep for Dustin Johnson this year was the PGA Championship at Baltusrol. Other than that, he has played flawless golf, and so right now, my man is for Player of the Year is going to be Dustin Johnson, and I just don't think a win for Jason Day would put him on top.
Well, Dustin Johnson also in a great spot if you take a look at the current top 10 in the FedEx Cup standings, because he's on top of Jason Day in that category as well. These are the reset points entering the Tour Championship. DJ in the driver's seat. Remember, if you're in the top 5 and you win the Tour Championship, you also take the FedEx Cup playoffs and the $10 million bonus. Paul Casey occupies that 5th and final spot. On the LPGA this week, it's the 5th and final major of 2016, the Evian Championship in France. So far this year, we've had 4 different winners at the first 4 majors, and this is the 4th time this event is being contested as a major championship. Time for an LPGA Tour update presented by Volunteers of America. For that, we flash back a year ago, and what a final round performance by Lydia Ko. How about a Sunday 63 to coast to her first career major victory as an 18-year-old, setting a new record for the youngest ever major winner. And remember what Ariya Jutanugarn has done this year, capped by the Ricoh Women's British Open. The 20-year-old Jutanugarn closed with a 72 to win by 3 at Woburn in England and become the first player from Thailand to win a major. So we've got a heck of a 2-player race for LPGA Player of the Year. The numbers are pretty close. Ko, 4 wins, 1 major, 13 top 10s. Ariya with 5 wins in a major and 11 top 10s. She trails Ko by 5 in Rolex Player of the Year points. So who would you take right now as your Player of the Year on the LPGA Tour?
Well, I'm going to go with Lydia Ko, even though they both have a major championship. You know, I look at the Women's Ricoh British Open, the LGU, the Ladies Golf Union in the UK. They set the golf course up. I don't think they put it in a championship state. I think it's a little too easy, whereas in Palm Springs, they play the same course every year, much like the Masters. The players know it. It's a tough setup, and I think it was a tougher major to win. But right now, it's a coin toss, but I would certainly give it to Lydia Ko right now.
Would you say whoever wins next, or assuming there's only one more win between the two of them, would take Player of the Year?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's totally different picture. 2 majors trumps 1.
All right, well, these are the up-to-date race to the CME Globe standings. No surprise, Lydia and Ariya 1-2. Then there's a little gap back to Brooke Henderson, this year's KPMG Women's PGA Championship, currently ringing in at 3rd. And on Golf Central, who's the favorite to be the 12th man on the U.S. Ryder Cup team? John Feinstein gives us his inside track. Plus, Bryson DeChambeau has locked down his PGA Tour card thanks to his win at the DAP Championship. What impact will that have for him going forward?
Golf Central is brought to you by the new Titleist NXT Tour and NXT Tour S. Innovation that matters. Grip Confidence. Grip Golf Pride.